Welcome back to another episode of Guided Mistakes. I'm your host, Jenna Allen, and today we have a very special guest. We have Kathryn, and she is a lash tech. She works for Live, Laugh, and Lash. Is that right?
Live, love, and lash.
Live, Love, and Lash. Okay, perfect. I'll edit that out too. It's fine. So Live, Love, and Lash. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
And
thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, and then today we are going to talk about constructive criticism and learning from your mistakes. So I will let you introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Jenna. It's a
Yeah,
pleasure to be speaking about that today.
yeah, of
And
course.
so, um, I've been self-employed for 10 years. I have had odd jobs here and there while I was self-employed, but primarily my main income has been from self-employment through lash extensions and massage therapy. So I'm also a massage therapist.
Oh,
And and with my company that I've built, I have a product line as well as my own podcast. And I started teaching. So I was just approved by the Arizona State Board to be an educator. So I now teach people to do lashes. I also
oh,
have
wow.
online,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I also have
awesome.
online. Thank you. And I also have online classes that they can just take on their own, as well as a community. And I've also started speaking and coaching
Oh,
for
wow.
business and mindset.
That's amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. I love the mindset stuff. I'm like, it's so fascinating. Like I love mindset stuff. So what have you like what's your perspective on like the constructive criticism?
So I think that constructive criticism can come from many different angles. The main one, being a service provider, is going to be from your customers or your clients. If they're not happy, ultimately your business isn't going to grow. And so you really need to kind of take a step back and learn and listen to A, what they're asking for in the first place, so that way you
Yeah.
can provide it. And then B, if they say, hey, this just wasn't what I was looking for, to see how you can change your system or like how you go about doing your particular service.
Yeah.
So that way you can accommodate for what they're actually asking you for. And I'll give you an example. So I've had a few professional athletes as massage clients and then some as lash clients. And when it comes to somebody who is in the public eye
Yeah.
a lot, they want something very specific, especially when it comes to lashes. And this one particular girl, she had reached out, said, "Hey, I'd love to have you do my lashes." And I did them based on what I remembered from the last time that I had done her lashes. But then I get done with them and she's like, these were not what I was hoping for. And so we kind of had a conversation of like, okay, so that was my fault for not truly getting a good grasp of what you were looking for from the set of lashes for this particular time.
Yeah.
So I do apologize. Let's see how we can correct this so that way you can have what you're looking for. Because ultimately, the customer is always right, even if they're not right.
I see. From a
And they're
business perspective, yeah, I see what you're saying.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in this case, I was wrong. And it takes a big person to admit that, you've made a mistake.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you can't grow if you don't make mistakes.
Yes.
So in a sense, how you start your business. So like when I started my business, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, okay, my door is now open. Please come see me.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I started realizing and learning how to actually operate a business and how to increase my customers' experience to a level of luxury services so that I could start charging luxury prices.
Yeah.
And so you wouldn't be able to do those things unless you were receptive
Yeah.
to getting that constructive criticism or constructive feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And it's true because it's like when you have a business, if the customers are not happy, your business is not happy, you're not going to make money, you're not going to succeed. So
Yeah.
I totally understand that. Like that, yeah, that's very, very true. And it does. I'm super big on like accountability and like owning my mistakes. I've made lots of mistakes in my past, right? But so yeah, it's really important to be able to do that. So no, that's really cool actually. So when it comes to learning from your mistakes, what has been like I guess like what outside of business, do you have any other things that you've learned from your life?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What haven't I learned? Okay. So in relationships, and that can be like with an intimate partner or with business clients or with other entrepreneurs, or maybe it's your friends or your family. There's always a dynamic that goes into play with every single relationship.
Yeah.
And throughout all of the things that I've learned through business,
Yeah.
it has actually helped me improve my relationships in
Ooh.
all aspects. So, one of the things that I learned recently was that everybody is a salesperson. Even if you don't consider yourself a salesperson, you're a salesperson. If you're out there dating, you're selling yourself. You're selling who you are, what you look like. So when the people get catfished, I'm just like, well, you got sold.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're coming from the other side of that, of giving that like sales pitch or whatever, you are actually trying to give them the best that they're looking for. So in a sales situation, if they already have a particular program or a particular course, but you know that you know of that course and it's not as valuable and as in depth as your program, you want to sell your program
Yeah.
by selling the parts that they're not getting by having that course. So in dating, you're selling what life you have now would be so much better if I was in it. And this is why X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to like friends and family, there is a lot of dynamics that go into that as well, because everybody has their own life.
Yeah.
And growing up as a kid, you're just like, oh, do you want to be best friends? Yes. Okay, let's go and play in the sandbox or
Yeah.
whatever. Let's go have a great time. But now, because of people's trauma and being abandoned and all of these limiting beliefs that they start to gather over time, they
Yeah.
actually start to put up walls and they're like, no, I don't want to go meet people. I just want to sit at home, watch Netflix, chill on the couch all day, every day. Friday nights, go out to the club. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But you don't meet people. You don't learn.
Yeah.
You don't get to be a more versatile person and get to learn about new personalities or learn about new ethnicities
Yeah.
from foreigners that come and visit.
Yeah.
So if you're able to get yourself out there and meet new people, you're going to have conflict. I
Yeah.
mean, there's going to be a conflict in every single relationship.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's with your client, it doesn't matter if it's with a friend or a significant other. You have to approach it of with the mindset of they're right and you agree with them, but there's a caveat to that. You can reframe the way that they are maybe perceiving you by how you speak and how you sell yourself or your point.
I
And
see.
so and so like every relationship is different. There are some people who are just so closed off that they don't want anything to do with that.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of that comes from living an inauthentic life
Yeah.
where they just can't feel safe enough to show up as who they say they are.
Mhm.
And like I'll give you an example. I was on Facebook dating for a little while, and I met this really great guy, and he was very nice. We hit it off. We had really great conversation. We hung out a few times, And then I started noticing and recognizing that the things that he would do or say at the beginning of this relationship, he started slowly taking it back, almost as if he was like, "Oh no, I've shown you too much." And I'm like, "But I've seen it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't unsee it. I
Yeah.
know who you are now."
Yeah.
And now this front that you're putting on is more of a turnoff than like letting me see who you are.
Hmm.
But, you know, that comes with trauma and the way that people deal with those traumas.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. That's a hard one too, because like even in dating as well, it's like that's why I ask very hard questions to people when I get to know people, because I find that that's an easy way to really get to know someone without them having to pull a front. Because, or if they don't want to answer, you know something's wrong, you know?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And I ask a lot of hard questions to people. And this particular guy, he was like, "Man, you should be a therapist." I was like, "There's still time."
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So what has been with constructive criticism, can that does that like apply to life too, not just business? Like do you think that that's important in like friendships and relationships as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in a relationship, you have to maintain your goals and your authenticity, but
Yeah.
you also have to take into account the other person's goals and how they think and feel.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a caveat to that, but so I'll talk about that in a second. But when you are trying to nurture this relationship, doesn't matter what relationship it is, if they're telling you, "Hey, I don't like what you're doing right now, it's making me feel some sort of way,"
Yeah.
you need to take that and say, "Okay, I hear you. Let's unpack that. Let's like deep dive into why whatever it is I said or am doing is
Yeah.
making you feel that way." Because ultimately, it's about intention.
Mm,
If
yeah.
you are intending to hurt somebody or intending to be rude or disrespectful, then yeah, that's a whole nother situation. But if your intention is to make a joke
Yeah.
or to, make light of a dark situation that they're just not quite ready to be light about,
Yeah.
and they get offended about it, that's not on you. That's
No,
on them.
absolutely.
And a lot of times, women especially are terrible at this. We end up becoming people pleasers and we start taking away the things that we need and want and start putting other people's needs and wants in front and make it more of a priority than ourselves.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of where I go into that caveat of in a relationship, doesn't matter what it is, you should be your first priority
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
And if it's not an inconvenience to help them process through whatever emotion they're feeling or whatever sensation they're feeling,
Yeah.
which 9 times out of 10, it's not an inconvenience, you're just being impatient.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a balance between being selfless and then selfish. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's a balance, right? Like I feel like because I feel like it's hard to find that balance because not everybody can understand that balance, you know? But I actually had a really interesting question for you because I'm actually curious what your opinion on this is. But when you said like intention, like, do you feel like there's also a difference between, how do I word this? Like you can be the greatest person, you can have the most intentions, but it's still, to me, in my perspective, it's still not an excuse to make a habit of unhealthy behavior. Do you agree with that, or do you have your own perspective on that?
I think each person has their own idea of what healthy is.
Mm,
So for me, healthy, so we'll start with one realm. So like physical health.
yeah,
To me, that means getting up, going for a walk, doing a workout, eating healthy, doing things for my body for self-care,
yeah,
like getting a massage or doing a facial or getting my hair or my nails done.
yeah,
So that to me is healthy.
yeah,
But to somebody else, they might say, "Oh, that is high maintenance. That's too much." For me, healthy is I'll go for a walk and I binge watch Bridgerton on Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Fair enough. That's a good point. Yeah.
so to me, that is unhealthy. That is like you're not trying, you're not, getting yourself out there, you're not really taking care of your entire being.
Yeah.
But to the other person, they say, "Oh my gosh, you're an overachiever. Are never satisfied." And I'm just like, I mean, I feel satisfied by maintaining my
Yeah.
routine and trying to
Yeah.
make sure that my body stays healthy so that I
Yeah.
can continue to make a difference in the world like I would
Yeah.
like to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. That's a good point. That's the thing. Like everything, like we all have our own lens. We all see things differently, right? I just know for me in the past, I would have people say, "Well, I have the best intentions, but I'm still gonna treat you like shit." You know what I mean? So like, I feel like to me, I don't know. I feel like you could be the greatest person, but people make mistakes. I think it's more how you go about it going forward you know?
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yeah,
that's,
you need to learn from your mistakes and
yeah,
recognize if you are in the same pattern
yeah,
to produce that same outcome. Like, for example, um, I have recognized that after about 2.5 to 3 weeks, I start really craving ice cream because I
yeah,
absolutely love ice cream.
yeah,
And if I have that ice cream and feed into that desire, that cycle just continues and continues
yeah,
and continues until I make the conscious effort of learning, hey, this ice cream doesn't make me feel very good.
yeah,
Ultimately, I mean, it tastes delicious, but
yeah,
but in the long term, like it doesn't make me feel good. It's
yeah,
not in alignment with my goals,
yeah,
and it's actually, putting me backwards from being able to achieve my goal the way that I want to. And it's like pushing that timeline out further from
yeah,
being able to achieve it. So,
absolutely. So is that where you think boundaries need to come in? Like just in general, when it comes to like relationships and people and just businesses, like if you feel like there's the intentions there and everything, but like if someone's continuing to have a pattern, like do you feel like that's where the boundaries need to come in? Like that's like
so
discipline and boundaries kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah. So I kind of have two ideas of boundaries. So boundaries are for you.
Yeah.
It's like like if somebody's mistreating you, a boundary is, hey, what you're doing right now doesn't make me feel very good. And if you continue, I'm going to leave. That's a boundary. A demand is, I don't like what you're doing. Stop.
Mm,
So a lot of people get boundary and a demand mixed up and they think that they're the same thing.
they're not.
And that's kind of where relationships start to fall apart because they're like, "Hey, I'm setting this boundary." And the other person's like, "Well, no, you're asking me to do something and change my behavior based on what you feel." And that's not an expectation that should be had in any relationship. And that goes across the board. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what type of relationship it is. I mean, within certain relationships, you do have like an understood type of responsibility and expectations. Like, I have a client that comes in for lashes. I'm going to expect that they have lashes on and that they're mine because I do their lashes. And if they have somebody else's lashes, I might be like, "Excuse me, who did you go see?"
Yeah.
But I'm not,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but I'm not going to be like chastising them and say, "I'm not going to do your lashes because you went to somebody else." There are some artists who do that, and that's
Yeah.
their boundary.
Yeah.
But I also think that when you get into a situation where somebody is repeating a pattern of abusive behavior or toxic traits
Yeah.
or just unhealthy behavior that you see as being unhealthy or that you don't want to be around,
Yeah.
you could set a boundary and be like, "Hey, I've noticed that you're doing this.
Yeah.
I would really, really love if we could maybe talk about that because to me, if that continues, it doesn't make me want to stay.
Mm,
And that opens up both people's communication of
yeah.
like, why does that make you feel that way? And why is it making me feel that way? And why do you think it's acceptable to keep doing that? So
Yeah.
and it's all about communication and understanding and just being open to listening to what they're saying and
Yeah.
actually practicing active listening.
Yeah. Absolutely. And do you feel like that applies to kind of everything in life, like even business too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Yeah.
oh, sorry, were you gonna?
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
What has been your like biggest lesson in the business world of like constructive criticism and like just being willing to like fix a mistake?
Hmm. I think my biggest lesson with fixing a mistake in my business is don't wait to fix it.
Hmm.
If if you are presented with a problem, the longer you wait, it's going to just continue to
Yeah.
grow and become an even bigger problem. Like, so I'll give you an example within my business. When I first started, I didn't know how to do my taxes. And then I was doing them on my own on TurboTax. And then last year, I added a bunch of things to my business and I wasn't keeping them separate.
Oh.
So my tax person that I ended up hiring was like, your taxes are a mess. I
Oh
was
no.
like, oh. So he was
Oh
like, I might
no.
have to go through and audit
Yeah.
everything. And I was like, can we just pretend that it's all okay and just start from here? And he was like, yes, they don't like that, but it is what it is. But like with taxes, they want you to basically file the same way
Yeah.
consecutively. So like if you start one way with like for example mileage, if you track your mileages for your work, if you track it one way in let's say in 2022 and then 2023 you track it a different way,
Yeah.
yeah, the IRS could get mad, but ultimately they're not really looking for like the average Joe. They're looking for somebody who's like multimillionaire and is trying to commit tax fraud and like that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
ultimately, like the biggest lesson I've learned is if you're presented with a problem,
Yeah.
find a solution and fix it as soon as possible.
Okay. I like that. That's really insightful. That's really cool, actually. I think like a lot of people too in the business will probably find that really helpful as well. That's awesome. So, for people that do want to work with you and like get lashes done and all that stuff, where can they find you?
So I am on Facebook, Instagram as live.love and lash.
Okay.
And then I'm also on YouTube. It's Live, Love, and Lash. And then I'm also on Spotify. If you want to listen to my podcast, it's Live, Love, and Lash podcast.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure getting to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely.